Good morning, Carolyn Shapiro.
Good morning, Dr. R. I just can't see you. There. Oh, look at that. Magic. You popped up. How are you doing?
Excellent.
Love that because it's the best way to start the morning on a positive note. Love excellent. So, guess what? Questions.
All right. You and I have been down this road before. I think that's one of the things we do together is questions. Oh, yeah.
We do, and we do it well, apparently, which is really cool. I love it. I love it. I love it. I love it. I think the universe is amazing. Thank you, universe. Anyway, here we go. Question number 1. And this is one you get, and I know it. And kind of saddens me sometimes when I read these. But anyway, I'll be happy reading it. I am a 59-year-old woman. I just had a visit with my new doctor. She told me that I am too late in the game, that I should have started 9 years ago, and now I can only be on hormones 1 more year. And I really thought that I could take HRT as long as I wanted. I'm confused. Help.
I'm glad this question is coming up.
Me too. And I can ask it 1,000 times.
It relates to this crazy thing that happened in the world of medicine. A poison bomb got dropped in 2002. There was misinformation.
Yes.
And it changed the whole practice of treating women in menopause.
Right.
And it was the Women's Health Initiative, and it falsely reported that there was increased risk when really there's decreased risk. But it scared everybody. And all these cockamamie ideas come up. Like, well, you should only take the smallest dose for the shortest period of time. Wrong. Well, this is the evidence for taking it for every minute you're on the planet Earth is the strongest. And you think I'm going to give up me taking my testosterone? No way. I'm going to take it for every day that I can rotate the bottle.
You would have to pry my oils away from my body.
So let me the information I'm with all due respect, I'm sure this woman's practitioner has a lot of good experience, a lot of good intention, but her information is incorrect. So let me correct the information. Number 1, we're all at risk for all kinds of diagnoses. We're all at risk for cancer. As a male, I have an increased percentage risk for prostate cancer. There are reasons why this is so. I'm not going to go into those reasons right now. Women are at increased risk for breast cancer over other cancers. There are reasons for this, but here's the science. Women who are treated with hormones are at less risk for breast cancer, heart attack, and stroke than women who do not have treatment.
At less risk. At less risk.
Well, when the 2002 Women's Health Initiative came out, they falsely reported that there was increased risk with Prempro. Only. There was decreased risk with Premarin. They falsely reported it. But it scared everybody, and all these cockamamie ideas come up. Well, maybe, like I'm repeating myself. Well, maybe you should take the lowest dose and only take it for the shortest period of time. So that information that you're too late at 59 is absolutely incorrect. And I recommend best science. Get on a great hormonal program. Do what due diligence you need to do to get with someone who really knows what they're doing, who's specializing. Those who are specializing in treating women in menopause, they're not telling their patients, oh, 59, you're too late. Oh, you should only be on this. They're not doing that because they're very deeply familiar with what the science is. So I pointed out this book from your friend. You used to go visit Dr. Blooming's home because your daddy was friends with Dr. Blooming when you were just a little toddler. Not so long ago, you were just a little toddler cruising around.
Yeah, just a couple of years back.
Cruising around in your little whatever, going to visit Dr. Blooming. Little did you know.
Little did I know. Actually, he was part of the temple and best friends with the OBGYN, who was my then boyfriend's father. It's all a big story. And then you come along. And guess who came along then? Dr. Blooming.
I know, it's amazing.
A crazy
Amazing.
story.
So
Amazing.
I want to now answer the woman's actual question. You are not too late. I started treating my mother-in-law when she was 86 and my mother when she was 89. And to benefit for both of them. You're never too late. Now, if you have not had hormones for 10 years, there are some special approaches that we need to do. This is why we want you to be connected to an expert. This is why we want you in the Menopause Method program. Just start right there. There are some special attention we need to take, because if your body's been without estrogen for 10 years, 9 years, 8 years, 7 years, we don't know the magic number. We evaluate every single woman based on her individuality. Sometimes we want to get some special tests around your coronary arteries, but that's the only thing. And once we know that you're clear to go, you go on the same program a woman who's at 42 goes on. And we figure you out step by step until you're dialed into, well, here's my favorite thing that women say. Oh my God, I'm myself again. And not only that, all this wrong information has been antidoted. And it's an unfortunate time in a way. It's so primitive. I was talking to a woman patient this morning. It's still primitive times. We're only in 2021. Very primitive. And here's what's imperative. Unlike any other medical specialty, women in menopause, you got to take the bull by the horns, and you got to be your own health care advocate. And what do you need? What's your job? Go out and interview and find people who are specializing in this and know what they're doing. They're not going to give you misinformation. And so, unfortunately, you don't have to do that if you're going into neurology or internal medicine. You can go to almost any neurologist, almost any internal medicine doctor in the country, almost any orthopedic surgery. Their processes are relatively state-of-the-art. They've already got their standard of care well defined. You're not going to see these crazy, wild variances and different approaches to things. Menopause, not true. Growth got stunted in 2002. Deeply damaged, a major body blow. So what do? We work with the earth that we're in. We work with the earth that we were born into. This is the time. And here's what the job is. Women, you have to become the source of your own discovery process. And here's the only job you really need to do. You need to go shopping until you find a medical professional that's specializing in menopause that you feel comfortable with. And you go, bam, I got it. I did my due diligence. I found that person. Sometimes you got to change from one to another. Once you find that method in that person, you're home free. You're not going to have to be the guide to your own program anymore. But it's only 2021. We're still cave people walking around here as far as menopause goes. So what's called for? You got to find your specialist. And meanwhile, 59, too long? Holy mackerel.
That's
late.
When I started.
Yeah. And like I say, we start women in their 80s. It's never, ever, ever too late to turn the tide on health issues.
Those words are so amazing to hear, because I did start at 59. I just turned 63. So I'm going into year 3. I know I feel different, like bar none. You know, I am that woman you just talked about. Like, oh my God, I'm me again. It's very noticeable, you know?
And from my exalted perspective, 59 is like a kid. You know, it's like you're a teenager. I'm only kidding, but
I feel like a teenager.
Sort of like compared to working with a woman in her mid 80s who I would still work with. Absolutely.
Absolutely.
You're like a teenager. From our
I'm proud of it. I really enjoy it. So we have some women here. Kim is saying, yes, is the treatment safer with bioidenticals? This is where I want to focus my ND practice, which is amazing. And we have a heart, and we have a smile
Let,
from our.
let me address that one.
Yes, please. Oh,
In,
yeah.
in any endeavor on the planet Earth, any subject, car mechanics, plumbing, teaching, being a teacher of young people, you name it, being a janitor, there's all levels of knowledge, experience, and expertise. There's all levels of mediocre practice, good practice, very good practice, great practice, masterful practice in every single human endeavor. And the same is true in menopause. If the only tool that a woman had was Prempro, that was the only thing that was offered for menopause, I'd be grateful.
Oh, you bet.
But we're 30 years beyond, and the state of the art, without a doubt, is compounded. Oh, compounded. Did I say compounded?
You did.
Individualized bioidentical hormones for treating women in menopause. And there's a lot of moving parts. And I'm so glad that you're a naturopath. And, download our book, connect with us. We can help you become an expert. But are bioidenticals safer and more elegant, more effective? Yeah, absolutely. Why? You're a naturopath. You're going to want to copy nature as much as anyone on the planet Earth. Well, that's what bioidenticals are. It turned out that this is advanced so far that you can prescribe the same molecules that the ovaries used to produce. They're coming out of plants because plants can be pharmacologically modified precursors to create pure estradiol, pure estriol, et cetera, et cetera. So the deeper you get into the subject, the more you're going to see the beauty of bioidenticals. And there's things that you can do with bioidenticals that you just cannot do with anything else, like estriol, for example.
Right.
Now, there's a heck of a lot more moving parts than just the word bioidentical. It all begins with bioidentical, but organic delivery systems really matter. And 24-hour urine hormone testing really matters. And your knowledge and your training and your experience really matters, because women and men, for that matter, we're so individually different. How much we need, what kind of balance we had when we were younger, how sensitive we are to anything we take, how well you absorb. There's so many moving parts, no big deal. When you take on the whole subject and you just see patient after patient after patient and you get trained, it's just a fun puzzle to solve.
Well, and that's the thing. Fun, 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 fun. And when we can make this fun, people heal. That's the way it is.
That's the fun.
That's the definite fun.
That's the fun. When I hear a woman say, "Oh my God, I'm myself again," that's where the fun is.
Time for celebration. Boy, do I know. Oh, do I know. So we have a good morning. And Kim, the NP is like, I'd love to. Another one was, can we ask questions? Of course you can ask questions. And then now I've got another question that's going to tie into what you just said. And this is from someone who I've introduced you to, actually. She's in my school. Nice woman. And she's saying, why is it that blood serum hormones would be normal, yet I tested out very low with urine metabolites? We know that CBHRT, compounded bioidentical hormone replenishment therapy, is made with soy and yam. Well, I can ask that in a second. Let's go to just that. Why is it that blood serum hormones would be normal, yet I tested out very low with urine metabolites?
I love blood tests.
I know you do.
Over 50 years of being a doctor, I've put in requisitions for thousands of blood tests, thousands, for so many different reasons. They're so beautiful. They're not the be all and end all, but they're so helpful. Not for treating women in menopause with hormones. Oh, they don't work for that. 24-hour urine hormone test works beautifully. Even the American College of Gynecology and the North American Menopause Society, the traditional bastions of considering themselves the authorities on menopause. I don't, but they do. With all due respect, they're saying in white papers on their website, don't test women that you're treating. It's all a matter of dealing with symptom alleviation. Why are they saying don't test with blood? Because they're right. Why are they saying don't test with saliva? Because they're right. You can't get the information you want, but what they don't know about and what they don't mention is you can get fabulous information through 24-hour urine hormone testing. And for example, with estrogens, you get the 3 parent estrogens, estradiol, estrone, and estriol, and you get 4 metabolites, which is very relevant. When you're doing a blood test, ain't nobody testing for metabolites. And so what is the significance of you getting normal estrogen levels, but low metabolites? I don't even know if you got metabolites. I can't imagine. No one can afford that. It's way too expensive to test the metabolites, and you can't even test them all as far last time I checked. Besides, it doesn't work. There's a thing called pharmacokinetics. Like, when did you apply your last dose of estrogen compared to when did you draw that blood? Did you draw it 5 minutes after you applied it? 15 minutes, a half hour, an hour, 2 hours? You got to know when a woman peaks, and you got to be very consistent about that. It just doesn't work, including you're not going to get the metabolites. Nobody can afford, no insurance company can afford that as a long-term strategy. It doesn't work. But what does work is 24-hour urine hormone testing. I'm not talking about urine testing that's these collect 5 different urinating onto filter paper. I am not talking about that. No, N-O. I'm talking about 24-hour urine hormone collecting, that kind of testing. And so you got to shift your mind over to do what works.
Well, yeah. I mean, in the long run, in the short run, it totally behooves somebody to do it. And the 24-hour urine testing is very specific. Like, you have to do it right. Right?
So there was a second part to that question?
There is. We know that CBHRT is made with soy and yam. But what about DHEA, progesterone, testosterone, and the different estrogens? Are they made of these same components? And how do we know if these are organic, GMO, etc.?
Okay, good one.
Yeah.
Number one, I'm going to ask you a question.
Okay.
What is the difference between you and a carrot or a piece of celery or a soybean or a yam? What's the difference between everyone out there, between you and a wild yam and a soybean? Is there any difference?
Maybe a little bit. I don't know. Last time I checked. Haven't looked in the mirror
of
yet.
course, there's a lot of difference. But there's also some similarities. For example, many plants have precursors to the hormones that women's ovaries have. For example, there are plants that have a precursor to steroid hormones called diasterogen. And what's the most prevalent source of it? Easiest to access? Soy and yam. So, for example, the pharmaceutical companies wanting to produce vast amounts of estradiol for the birth control pill found this diasterogen in yams and in soy. There's reasons how they found it. They didn't discover it. And what they can do because of exquisite precision biochemical transformation stuff, the kind of stuff that we used to do in the laboratory in medical school and even in college, they can convert diasterogen into estradiol and estriol and testosterone and DHEA. They know how to do that, and progesterone. And that's what they do. and they convert diestrogen from soy into the actual parent hormones, and compounding pharmacists buy that from them and can put it up in creams and gels and organic oils. So women can have access to it, and men can have access to the testosterone. In fact, this is a male testosterone. Now, are these soy fields that they own GMO or not? Are they organic? No. I haven't done the research, but that's not one of their priorities, is let's just extract this from organic soy. We're not there yet. They're not doing that. But these molecules are so refined that we hope and pray that there's no, fertilizers, herbicides, pesticides left in the pure powder of estradiol. And there are these compounding pharmacy organizations that are testing the living heck out of this stuff, including for toxicity. They know how to do that.
Right.
For example, in the chain of production, in the world of compounding bioidentical hormones, there's these core providers. The PCCA is one of them. Mediska is another one. They're checking the batches that come in from the manufacturers. And one of the things they're checking them for is impurities.
Yes.
Like, is there poison in there?
Right.
And they know how to check it.
Yes.
So do I wish we were extracting this from organic soy or organic yams? Yes, I do, but it's not happening. So what do? We're human beings. Life is not perfect on this earth, in case any of us didn't notice that. We do the best we can. We practice by a method called, is it good enough? And this is the best we've got. This is not horse urine-derived estrogens, where there's a multitude of issues, but they still work. This is the best that's out there. It's compounded bioidentical hormones that go through a rigorous process, including checking for impurities. And are they perfect? No. It's the best we got, though.
Right. And they work. They do.
Oh,
and
they
I
do.
think I remember you're telling me that, like, if they got a bad batch, they just tossed it.
Yes, isn't that interesting, Carolyn? I want to, like the PCCA, this is the pharmaceutical the compounding pharmaceutical organization, one of them. They're testing every batch that's coming in from a manufacturer. And here's what they do. If they see toxins in there or impurities in there, they don't send the batch back to the manufacturer. They just stop purchasing from that manufacturer. They know. That's right. What's that sign? What does that mean?
It means no más.
No más.
No más.
Yeah. So that's how rigorous they are.
Yes, because they want to do it right.
They stop dealing with the manufacturer.
Correct. So, in that, we can feel safe there, and we can feel safe with you. And I know that for sure, 100%, 1,000 times exponentially. Question came up, interestingly enough, two of them. One is, how come the NAMS hasn't been informed and convinced of the wonderfulness of the 24-hour urine hormone testing so that they can get all OBGYNs and menopause specialists to implement it so that women can get well in menopause? That's a nice one. Uh-oh.
We're going to venture into some touchy territory here. And hello to Kim. My goodness. Hello to Kim.
This is from Levon, actually.
I know. I see that. But I also see that an old dear relative of mine has checked in.
Nice.
NAMS, North American Menopause Society. What I learned about medicine back in the early 70s was there's a whole body of knowledge of excellent tools that many medical doctors can bring to assist patients. And then there's the vanguard. There's the people who are exploring deeper with more curiosity and more rigor. And they're coming up with, they're at the frontier of discovery. And they're some of the most interesting and best researchers, physicians, and but they tend to be about 10, 20, 30 years ahead of what the body of knowledge that's most in practice. And that's what's happened in menopause, as it has in every other specialty. And with all due respect, I'm going to say that NAMS and the ACOG, as far as hormones go, I mean, ACOG is just amazing. American College of Gynecology and Obstetrics. Their surgical excellence and their procedure excellence is just off the charts. They have been so rigorous around childbirth, and not perfect. I mean, that's a whole subject. A lot more cesarean sections going on, but there's a lot of, let me just say, I have tremendous respect for them in this regard. Now, in the world of hormones, I'm not going to say that they're not the ones that you turn to for excellence and expertise. And into the mix has come the influence of the pharmaceutical manufacturers.
Yeah.
Who's funding medical schools? Who's teaching doctors? Where's the medical schools getting their money? Who do they owe their allegiance to? Who does NAMS owe its existence to? So this is a very muddy field, and that's why I got a little nervous when you asked me the question, because I don't like to really come down hard on anybody.
No.
I don't like to. I think we're in a world where it's time to end the divisiveness, and let's all say kumbaya and get it together here. And
yeah, I get it.
And, but at any rate, I personally, having cared about menopause for 25 years and specialized in it, where do I go for my knowledge? I do not turn towards the American College of Gynecology. I turn towards them for expertise in surgery and procedures, and I rely upon gynecologists all the time. We're referring women patients to the gynecologist for transvaginal ultrasounds, for any surgery that they need. Absolutely. NAMS, I've tried, I would love to be able to teach at NAMS. Not that I'm going to be extended the open arms to do so, but I'd love to. It's one of our missions. How do we get in and really influence NAMS and help, in my opinion, bring them up to the excellence in menopause medicine where they're not? And how do we deal with, we want the pharmaceutical manufacturers to have their fair share of goodness and supporting women in menopause, but we don't want them to encroach into taking over the compound of bioidenticals. So, oh my God, here we go into the political.
Yeah, right. That's a whole.
Carolyn, I resign from this question.
All right, we will allow you to resign from the question, and we'll somehow manipulate it to revisit it later.
Oh, you will. Yes, I know your tactics. You're going to come back.
I know. You do not miss a beat, Dr. R. No, you do not. So, on to the next question. I was told that E3, estriol, is the weakest of all the hormones. We revisit this a lot. And I was also told that it does nothing to protect our bones, brains, hearts, vaginas, etc., etc., etc.
Wrong, and wrong.
That's what I thought.
And Carolyn has posted on the ins and outs of menopause a link to the free, no charge PDF version of our book, and we go into this topic. But I'm always delighted to talk about it because it represents the decades ahead that compounded bioidentical hormones are. Let's talk about a woman's body. A young woman's body produces a lot of hormones and metabolites. And as far as estrogen goes, it doesn't just produce one estrogen, the one that anyone in the field is most familiar with. It doesn't just produce estradiol. No, as a matter of fact, it produces 3 different parent estrogens that all have estrogenic potency. The most potent one is estradiol. Estradiol is not the most prevalent one. It's the most potent one. Estrone is a hormonally active estrogen. It's about 80% as potent as estradiol, and it's about twice as prevalent as estradiol. This is nature. This is how women were invented or created. And then there's a third estrogen called estriol. It is more prevalent than both the sum of estrone and estradiol. In fact, the studies have done, in fact, I was funded to do one of these studies. There's as much estriol and more than the sum of estrone and estradiol. Why is that happening? Well, I'm going to give you reasons, but let's just go for the basics, as Dr. Jonathan Wright did in the early 1980s. He said, why are we messing around treating women with horse urine-derived estrogens, 50% of which don't even occur in the human female? Why don't we do this radical, wild idea called, let's just copy nature? Radical. Why do we want to reinvent the human female's hormonal pattern? Why don't we just try and replicate what nature did? And so we did. And so ultimately it gravitated to a formula called Biest. Dr. Wright was doing 24-hour urine hormone tests way back there in the early 80s.
He's
and he just replicated what the hormone patterns that young women have. Now, he did it for a reason. Dr. Wright was aware of this research done by an oncologist, Henry Lemon, at the University of Nebraska in the late 60s and early 70s, published many papers, an oncologist, cancer specialist. Dr. Lemon wanted to know, is there any relationship to female hormone patterns in breast cancer? So he collected 24-hour urines. Oh, look at that. Back in the late 60s, early 70s, Dr. Lemon chose 24-hour urine hormone collections to analyze. And here's what he learned. Young, healthy women had 1.3 times as much estriol as they had the sum of estrone and estradiol.
That's really interesting.
That's young, healthy women.
Yeah.
How about women with breast cancer? They had way less estriol. And Dr. Lemon proposed that maybe estriol had something to do with health. I was funded to repeat this study. Well, actually, it wasn't exactly this study. I asked the funders, could I do a study called What's Normal for Young Women Between 18 and 27? And a laboratory funded it. And we found results similar to what Dr. Lemon did. We found that young, healthy women had 1.1 times as much estriol as they had the sum of estrone and estradiol. This is 35 years after Dr. Lemon's study. We did 24-hour urines on healthy, relatively healthy student nurses. And we found very similar results to that Dr. Lemon did. I know I'm getting in the weeds here, but you asked.
No, it's all right.
So now let's fast forward. The only thing we learned was we know how nature did it in young, healthy women. And it even related to cancer protection. Now, cancer has a million moving parts. I wouldn't for a moment attribute the development of something as serious as cancer or diabetes or anything to one factor. No way. But there is a hormone relationship, maybe. And so fast forward to this story. Every single menstrual cycle of a young woman prepares her for possible pregnancy. And if she doesn't get pregnant, it takes apart all that preparation. Once a month. How wild is that? One of the things that her body prepares her for is getting a rich enough lining to her uterus. So should there be fertilized sperm and egg, it can land and grow. The whole hormonal output prepares her for that healthy, rich endometrium. That's the lining. Oh, another wild thing, go figure. A woman prepares for possible breastfeeding every single cycle. Come on now. What's that about? And if the woman gets pregnant, she goes on to prepare for breastfeeding. If she does not get pregnant, all that preparation disappears. Here's what happens to breast glandular tissue. During the first half of the cycle, the estrogens promote breast glandular cell proliferation. In fact, a woman can feel her breasts get fuller. Many women can feel this as she gets deeper into her cycle. What's actually going on there is there's some additional cells. There's cellular mitosis and cell division. And if she gets pregnant, that just goes on to proliferate more, so she prepares for breastfeeding. If she doesn't get pregnant, all that disappears by a crazily aptly named disappearance of these extra cells called apoptosis. They pop, they disappear once a month. Well, it turns out that breast glandular cell proliferation is guided and under the auspices of a hormone called estradiol. Proliferation, mitosis, estradiol, preparation for lactation. And if a woman doesn't get pregnant, the deproliferation, the apoptosis, is under the guidance, the auspices, so to speak, hormonally, of estriol. Holy mackerel, in the 1990s, the deep science of what Dr. Lemon was uncovering got exposed, and it's called the estrogen receptor site alpha and estrogen receptor site beta. We cover that in the book for those of you who want to go wild with details. But I'm trying to build a case for copying nature. And we prescribe a bias, just to cut to the chase, that's got 4 times as much estriol in it than it has estradiol, because that will result in a 24-hour urine hormone pattern that replicates the richness of estriol and will result in a pattern that copies nature. So I know, deep into the weeds, but estriol is very, very important. And estriol helps the vagina enormously, as well as it does all kinds of different things. Do you think that the creator, I don't know her name, but I, like everyone else, has some kind of understanding of the creator. Do you know her name, by the way?
Carolyn. No, just kidding.
Excuse me 1 minute. Oh my God. Talk amongst yourself. I'll be right back.
Okay. So, hey ladies, I see all of your questions, and Dr. Rosensweet sends me a snapshot of them and I write them down. I get so many questions, and I'm doing my best to get them to you, get them answered for you. And now he's back. Look.
I'm back. So it comes down to, do you think that the creator made an error and just haphazardly put in more estrol than the sum of estrone and estradiol, that was an error? No. So it does matter. And so I don't use the language estriol is a much weaker estrogen, therefore it's not effective. No way. It's just the way it is. Yes, it doesn't have the potency of estradiol, but it has the functions that are critical for a healthy woman. So biased, compounded biased, and individualized. It doesn't matter that we start out with an 80-20, 80% estriol, 20% estradiol. Ultimately, on a 24-hour urine hormone test, we're going to tweak into what the proper ratio is, because what are we trying to do? We're just going towards copying nature and not inventing this new human being.
Right. And thank you for that. You know, when I was very new to this, I thought it was just 50-50, one size fits all. That's what you get, and go on your life in your merry way. Oh, how wrong I was. How wrong I was. When you get into the world of biased and you get into the world of the menopause method and these amazing organic oils and the way that they can be tweaked out, 80, 20, 70, 30, 60, 40. I don't know if you've done a 90-10 yet, but maybe. And then the milligrams per milliliter. It's so fascinating to me, and I suck at math, so I do my best. But nevertheless, it is, thank you, Dr. Rosensweet, for founding all of that. It is just beautiful.
And, I don't want to make it sound too complex. As I've used this analogy many times, I know a certain amount about how to fix my car.
Right.
Look out. I don't want to be the one fixing my car. I want to take it to a mechanic who loves being a mechanic and has fixed 1,000 cars.
And knows the innards of a car.
Knows the innards. So your job as a woman is not to go to medical school and learn all this stuff. And I know that there's the scientifically oriented amongst you, and you guys will go out there and research this stuff, and you'll have fun doing it. But that's not the main job. The main job is, your job is, go find someone who really knows what they're doing and surrender and let go, and you'll dance it together. You'll be partners, and you'll figure out your individual needs, because there are people who do specialize in this, and you want them to have this knowledge. You want them to do the 24-hour urine hormone testing.
Right, because there is a lot back of it. Oh, my dear me. There is indeed. And so, yeah, I agree. It's not necessarily our jobs to know all the super, super heady, biochemical, this, that, the other. But it's really fun, too, to learn that stuff. And then when you find a doctor you trust, you can talk to that doctor and go have lunch if you want, I suppose. Right? Okay, so on to the next question. Can we please speak a little bit more about cortisol? We talk so much of estriol and estradiol and progesterone, but we don't really talk so much about cortisol. And can you explain, nice light question, how cortisol works?
Yes. We got this whole group of biochemicals in our body, thousands of them. And they all matter. And, you want to believe in the divine, just study biochemistry. It's just, it just will awaken everything sacred within you, because it'll blow you away.
It'll blow your mind. But you need
these biochemicals vary as to how strong and intense an effect they have on your day-to-day life. And the category of the strongest effects, the most potent, poignant effects, they're called hormones. And there's quite a few of them. There's thyroid hormone. There's adrenal hormones. There's ovarian hormones or testicular hormones. There's other hormones. These are the strongest biochemicals in your body. In fact, they're so strong that an outpouring of them is really the biochemistry of fight or flight.
Right.
Back in the day when we used to have to watch out for saber-toothed tigers leaping on us, we could mobilize tremendous strength and flee or fight.
In like a nanosecond.
Yeah, and at the vanguard of the most powerful biochemicals energizing this fight or flight are hormones. And at the vanguard of the stress hormones, there's two of them, cortisol and adrenaline. Now, the other ones work too. Estrogen gets recruited, testosterone gets recruited, thyroid gets recruited, because they're so potent, they all can have a beneficial effect to help you run or fight a saber-toothed tiger. They'll also get triggered by any kind of emotional entanglement you do with a friend or a spouse. So it's no longer just saber-toothed tigers. Chief amongst them is cortisol. It turns out to be the only hormone that our body secretes that we cannot live without. We could, for example, remove the thyroid gland entirely, thus have no thyroid hormone. We'd be in bed all the time, but we'd still live. The adrenal gland is where the cortisol is being produced. You cannot remove the adrenal gland. Someone will not live. And it's because of the cortisol. So this cortisol is a big deal. But it's all part of a biochemical chain. And cortisol does many, many functions. And one of them it does is suppresses inflammation for a good reason. It'll divert energy away from the immune system, which requires a lot of energy, and divert it over to the fight or flight emergency situation. And cortisol will raise blood glucose because when you're attacked by a saber-toothed tiger, you need a burst of blood glucose to fight or flee. And it has a lot of functions. And the body prioritizes the preservation of cortisol like nothing else. It's going to make sure that your body can produce cortisol, and it will drain other resources along the way. It'll divert resources away from the production of estrogen and testosterone just to keep the cortisol boosted. So cortisol is extremely important. And what happens over time? People have so much exaggerated or ineffective or dysfunctional response to stress, so they keep pumping out that cortisol, we, day after day, year after year, decade after decade. So when we test 60-year-olds, we start seeing the evidence of depleted cortisol. We'll see the evidence of depleted androgens like testosterone and DHEA and depleted estrogens long before we'll see the dent into the corticosteroids. But eventually we're going to see the corticosteroids get dented as well. Now, in a menopausal woman, let's break it down there. That cortisol is going to be preserved, and even when it's a little low, all we have to do is replenish the estrogens and the testosterone and the DHEA, and we'll watch that cortisol improve over time. So even if a woman has evidence of low corticosteroids, we'll say to we teach the healthcare providers that we mentor and educate, look, just replenish the estrogens, the testosterone, the DHEA, the thyroid, and you're going to watch the corticosteroids replenish all on their own. Now, there are some women, for example, or men that have had such severe stress for so long that they walk into the change of life years, their corticosteroids are too low. And we will treat them right out of the gate, but we will watch them. We may start off treating them with corticosteroids, but we're also going to treat them for their estrogens, testosterone, thyroid, etc.
Right.
And over time, we will not have to continue that treatment.
Right.
Uniformly, in my practice, there's been a rare case where we'll also treat them with cortisol at the beginning, but we watch them like a hawk because we'll be able to discontinue that as we also replenish the estrogens and the androgens. Sound too complex? Sound too deep in the weeds? Here's what you don't need to do. You do not need to go to medical school. You do not need to become an expert at this. There is something you do need to become an expert at. You have a job. Your job is go shopping, do your research, do your due diligence, do a lot of communication, find a prescriber in your area or in your state these days, because telemedicine, that's all you need, who's an expert at this. Let them take the wheel. Your job is very important, though. You got to come up with someone who you are very compatible with, you trust, you enjoy, and sometimes you got to do some experimenting. I talk to women all the time that they had to go through years from one to another to another to another, but they landed, and now they're home free.
Right.
They're just in this ongoing relationship with an expert, and they get tested once a year, and sometimes they need tweaks. But just know, hang in there. We're in these primitive times. It's only 2021. We still have to go hunting and pecking for the right one. And then once you find the right one, you're home free. That's your job. Go shop.
Famous line with my little prescription pad, and it says, hang in there. Just hang in there. Because I did go through that. It was 17 years, and that's a long time. But boy, I got to tell you, all of it was worth it in the long run, for sure. And I cannot agree with you more, Dr. Rosensweet. There are women here who are asking, are you taking new patients?
Yes, we are. Our whole method is taking new patients. If you're in Florida, I can treat you by telemedicine. We have a whole, we're training and mentoring physicians and nurse practitioners and prescribing compounding pharmacists and PAs.
So from the lion's mouth, where do these people reach you, Dr. R?
Send an email to drr@menopausemethod.com.
And I'll have that
someone on our staff will read that email and start communicating with you. Here's the options available in your state.
And the coolest thing is that happens really fast. That impressed me, boy. I'll tell you, I put my name in, and the next morning I got a call. I was like, whoa. And my whole life changed. It was wonderful. There's a question here that says, what if you have high cortisol and DHEA? And what I want to ask you is everything that you just said, by putting all of those together, will help that high cortisol and DHEA. Am I correct?
Well, let me look at it a different way.
Okay.
There is a time in your own life where if you are not doing an elegant response to the natural stresses of human life, they're there for reasons. And part of our job is to get good at working with the stresses of life, because we will grow. We'll get wiser and more effective at everything that matters. It's not the stresses. They're not the issue. But how elegantly you respond is the issue. And
right.
If you're over-responding, if you're having exaggerated emotional responses that are being fueled by repressed emotional pain that we came to Earth with, that you haven't got the tools yet, you're going to trigger the biology of the stress response. And when you're young, your adrenal glands are so strong, they're going to pump out elevated levels of corticosteroids. And when we test you, we're going to see elevated levels. I always think about this. I say to my patients, look at this. You have elevated levels of corticosteroids, including cortisol and the metabolites. The good news is your adrenal glands are really cooking. They got a lot of health to them. They're capable of doing it.
Yes.
That capability does not last forever. You can continue to strain those adrenal glands, and then you start seeing reversion to normal levels, reference range levels of corticosteroids, and then you start seeing the fall. So that's the natural pattern, is while you're young, you can pump out those extra levels. They're not helpful to you. They're a recipe for insulin resistance. Weight gain. Go to our book and look at the chapter on weight gain. It describes how you do this. So elevated levels of corticosteroids, I'm lingering on this one. I'm circling back to this one. That's a recipe for insulin resistance, which is a recipe for weight gain. How many of you are excited about gaining weight? Not too many, and never met anyone who was. So these elevated levels of corticosteroids that are helping us with fight or flight, they're no picnic. And they do lead to insulin resistance, and they do lead to weight gain. It's one of the more common causes of weight gain, especially in a perimenopausal and menopausal woman. So you want to sort this one out. So read our book. There's a whole chapter on weight gain and its relationship to the corticosteroids.
It's such a good book. And this is the book. And you can you see? There it is. And you can download it free. Again, my favorite pages, 326 and 327. Check those out. If you like to read from the back to the front like I do. I swear I do. It's crazy, but I do. And you'll love the book. It's written well. It's written so that you can understand it. Oh my God. It's so filled with such good information. Yeah. My last question for you, Dr. R, goes back to what I asked you last time, because this girl went back to her doctor. Time permitting, it says again, my OBGYN just yesterday told me, no, no, no. OTCP is not good or safe. Hence the cancer warnings. He says, simply do not know what is in it. Don't take it. Bam.
Disagree.
I know you do.
OTC stands for over the counter.
Correct. Sorry about that.
Stands for progesterone. And I disagree entirely. Progesterone does not cause cancer. And here we get into the barrel of craziness around the Women's Health Initiative and what it was said and what was actually rumored and inferred, which was incorrect. And the reason I'm lingering here is because a lot of women start losing their progesterone at a faster and more accelerated rate than they do their estrogen, like in their 30s. And they start getting symptoms of overstimulation of estrogen because the estrogen is not being balanced by adequate progesterone. In the 1980s, Dr. John Lee developed over-the-counter progesterone. And of course, everything varies in quality. I mean, you reach out there and there's a ton of over-the-counter progesterones, and some of these companies are great and some of them are mediocre and some of them stink. But you can get over-the-counter progesterone and it's weak. It's good for a perimenopausal woman. It does beautiful work for a perimenopausal woman, a woman who's undergoing that very common pattern of her progesterone is declining at a much faster and deeper rate than her estrogen is. So she's getting estrogen dominance. I say, get ye some over-the-counter progesterone. Do yourself some good. And what's going to be the clues? Your period's got a little irregular in your 30s, or you start getting breast tenderness and uterine cramps that you didn't have for a decade or so. You're getting overstimulation by your estrogen of the breast glandular tissue and of the uterus because you're not getting balanced by adequate progesterone. So with all due respect, or shall we say disrespect, I'm saying over-the-counter progesterone is a solution that young women can reach out and do themselves. Meanwhile, they're getting introduced to the whole perimenopausal phenomena. Download our book because it's going to give you a sneak preview of the roadmap you want to get on. In some way or another, you want to get expert at it, because I don't think there's anything that you can do. Women, 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 men, 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 women, 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 that has more phenomenal and lifetime impact than getting on the case of that ovarian hormone decline early and getting good at it. And it doesn't matter if you get on it early or if you get on it in a medium or late. Get on it. Get good at it. And you're at a time in history where you got to know a certain amount. The only thing you really need to know is go shopping and find someone who does know what they're doing. But
and we can help you do that.
A lot of women need to be armed with what is good method so they can even discriminate and go shopping. So download our book. There it is.
Please, please, please write to me and I will put those questions out. Dr. R is going to screenshot me these questions because my cursor just doesn't exist, and I apologize about that. I don't know why.
Guess what time it is?
I know. I was just going to say, that hard stop time.
It's happened once again, Carolyn.
Weirdest thing. I don't know. Time just keeps moving on and on and on. Do you remember that song, Time? Time has come today. Time.
No.
Well, you got to
sing it for us.
Oh, yeah. Forget it. This guy's Are you kidding?
Call Daryl in and ask Daryl to play it for us.
Well, I was just in the studio with these guys. That's why I brought it up. And it's so fascinating, you know? It just, yeah. So it made me think of Time. You know, it's a great song. Many of you guys that remember it. Hard stop. Thank you, Dr. Rosensweet, so much for today. I will look at these questions. I'll write them down. I'm going to ask them. And we got to every single question. I can't believe it. And then a few other ones, too. Yay.
Yay. So I'm going to sign off, everybody. And thank you once again, Carolyn. It's my morning Tuesday and Thursday fun.
It's my
It's entertainment.
Fun. Absolutely.
And to all you women out there what an honor and a pleasure, and keep these questions flowing. It's a big fun thing. It's an important part of my week to be able to address your questions directly.
And it's really dear of you to do, and we appreciate it so much. You're very dear. So to all the women out there, all the men, Dr. Rosensweet, the whole Rosensweet team and clan, God bless. Adios. See you later, and have a great weekend. Bye.